As a whole, what would be, if someone were to come and ask you like your general opinion of parent coaches, what would you say?
I think it's important. I think that people are transitioning out of like town ball, recreation ball. I think that from like an outsider's perspective, everybody that's in the room can teach you something. It's just a matter of, are you willing and open to listen to what's being said? So like the parent may not know the most about the sport, but they may be able to teach you other things as it relates to being a part of a team or not being the best at something. Like, I think it's good as long as the people that are in charge have the best interest of the kids at heart. Right. You know, I think that too often and too early, kids are getting away from that, and you're specializing in things, and you kind of lose the element of community, and it becomes just about the individual instead of the team, which is why like the Little League World Series right now is fun to watch, because those are parent coaches that may not be in athletics or be in education. Like, they're just parents that love teaching and coaching.
I think of like parent coaches because you always hear, I mean, like you give lessons, so I'm sure you hear it from some of your students occasionally. You know, people will come in, they'll be upset, you know, you know, the coach's son is playing this position, and you know, it's because of this or whatever. And you know, and as an instructor, you're not watching games, you don't know, maybe the kid's the best, and you know, and it's just the way it is, right? I remember I was talking with my dad about it one time, and a lot of it's optics sometimes. Sometimes it's like, obviously there are parents that could be phenomenal coaches, you know, clearly, you know, my dad coached my high school team for 2 years, you know what I mean? And I think, you know, you think he was a great coach. I mean, you had a great experience with your dad coaching, but it's the optics of it. Yeah. A lot of times it's a parent, you know, they're upset about something, and it's like, oh, it's because it's his son. It's like, well, maybe it's not. Let me look at the other things that are going on. Maybe, you know, maybe that kid's putting work in, or maybe that kid's not putting work in. You're not watching during practice. So I remember when kids would always complain, you know, coming in, I would always try to push it back a little bit, you know. Now there are, on the flip side, there are instances of that. Like, I think in our area when I was growing up, travel ball, like the way travel ball is now, was not a thing, right? You know, so like Babe Ruth was a big thing. I don't know if that was big for you, Babe Ruth, right?
American Legion,
right? So yeah, so we had all those, and you know, during, like, parents were coaching those. You know, like, if I remember correctly, I think there was always a dad that was coaching, and I never remember having much of an issue with any of them. Right. But when I started getting into coaching, at least in our area, there was this thing called North Coast that came in, and it was basically, you didn't have to be from the same town anymore. It was like kind of the start of travel ball in our area, and I feel like that's when it really started to go downhill. It was like, you know, one kid felt like he should have been the shortstop, and he wasn't playing shortstop on whatever team. So then his dad went off and started a new team, and now he was a shortstop. And then next thing you know, there's like 30 teams at the same age, and it's watered down. And I feel like a lot of, at least in our area, that happened a ton. And then it kind of produced people who were unhappy with the situation. You know, it's like, so like I get it, but a lot of times I feel like, you know, with the parent coaches, it's more of just, you know, we've just avoided, like, I helped run a travel program for a while. We just try to avoid purely just from the optics standpoint.
I mean, I was always taught growing up, like, if you want something, you got to work for it. Like, nothing's going to be handed to you. So like, I try to remind parents of that. Like, you may be in an environment where your son or daughter's not getting what they want in the moment, but what are they doing to change those circumstances that don't involve complaining about it? Like, are they going and taking extra ground balls after practice? Are they asking for help? Are they seeking advice on how they can improve to get it? Like, growing up, I wasn't handed anything, and I feel like anything that I've ever gotten, I've earned. So like, I try to remind them, like, you may not like it, but do something about it. Like, change something that you're doing to make it impossible for that father, who's also the coach, to not put you at shortstop. And if you don't get put at shortstop, well, so what? What are you going to do? Right. Go play third base and be really good at it. Right. You know, learn how to be a good teammate and be your best without having to necessarily get what you want.
Well, what's funny is that advice is good advice, whether it's a parent coach or not, right?
Life.
Because that's life, right? And that's also, if you go on to play college baseball, it's the same thing. I don't know how many times I've had that conversation with college players, especially good ones, right? Where they're so used to being the starter, being at their position, and then they go to college, and it's like, oh, you're going to sit the first 2 years, right? And they're calling up and saying, I'm frustrated, I can't. It's like, and that that advice you gave is the exact advice you still have to give. Yeah. It's like, hey, control what you can control, work on things, make it so that coach has to put you at that position, because ultimately coaches want to win more than anything.
And
right.
at that level, that's their job. So if they don't
Right.
win, they're going to be looking for a new job.
Absolutely.
You know, at high school, like I coach high school, like we want to win, but at the same time, like from the baseball side of things, we're trying to mold young men. Like we're trying to teach them about life skills and how you may be on a team where you're not getting what you want. Figure out a way to make it work, because you're not going to love every job that you have and love everybody that you work with. But if you want to be good at something, you got to figure out how to navigate your best self within those boundaries.
Absolutely.